I mean, who doesn't love knockouts? That's the the ultimate way to win in boxing.
But he's patient, setting it up in the first round with a solid jab. Now he can land some power shots like that. Left hand. Oh.
Errol Spence Jr.
Okay, Van Heerden wants to wiggle out of it.
They call him the Truth. He's lived up to the name.
And you know what? That's enough. Alan Hudgens stops the fight. Now it's $1 million smile, and he's going to be in multi-million-dollar fights in his future.
Do you remember the moment where you first really hit a guy?
Hit a guy and knocked him out, and he was saying that he couldn't move his legs.
That's what I'm talking about.
As an amateur, he won the Golden Gloves, as well as 3 straight national welterweight titles. He became known as the Body Snatcher.
Oh, God!
He turned pro at age 22.
His professional debut, you see his amateur record.
Yeah, no doubt, Barry. This is a 3-time U.S. National Amateur Champion, and he's only 22 years old.
So here we go, round 1.
A southpaw with a knack for inflicting early damage, then pouncing and putting his opponents down in the opening rounds.
Nice uppercut slipped in by Spence, and another one. Garcia's down. 3, 4, 5. Errol Spence Jr. He's undefeated. He's 1-0, but he's undefeated.
He possessed that rare combination of knockout power in the hands of a high IQ boxing tactician.
Here is the truth, Errol Spence Jr.
We are off.
His highlight style finishing moves made him an immediate star.
3 big shots to the body. That one. Now, Hoskins is hard. He kept trying to come forward. The problem was he came forward and kept running into punches.
After that, he went on a tear through the division. Spence built himself up one fight at a time. Knockout after knockout.
A number of people thought Errol Spence the future of the welterweight division.
This guy's got devastating power, speed. He's the goods. He looked like the goods again tonight.
He's being selected by many, projected to be a top pound-for-pound best.
Because there's so many talented people, there's so many athletic people, but to be a champion, you need everything. You need gifts, you need athletic gifts, you need a sharp mind, you need a passion for the technical aspects of the game.
Getting into boxing, how did that come about? How did boxing come about?
My dad got me to boxing.
Errol's father was a tremendous influence on him, standing by Junior every step of the journey. A journey that began in a small gym in Texas.
You don't have that work ethic, you never keep it going. You always fall short of your expectations.
And saw Errol Spence Jr. transform himself into an Olympian. Errol has credited the Olympic experience with preparing him for the pressure of fighting under the bright lights.
You talk to the other Olympians, they all tell you he's the hardest worker on the team, and there's a very big upside with Errol Spence.
Lost a couple times in the World Championships. Went through the Olympic Games. He got to the 3rd round of the Olympics.
Errol Spence is probably the best pro-ready style prospect out of this bunch. I like the way he's aggressive. He sits on his punches, gives you angles.
Errol Spence Jr. is the best of all the American Olympians to turn professional after the last Olympic Games. This will be in the welterweight division.
Cordova trying to figure out a way to keep Spence off.
His run of dominance continued.
9, he's not going to make it. 10,
and out. Knockout. First round, Errol Spence Jr.
Kept himself. Spence is now cutting the distance a bit faster, a bit quicker.
Pretty good shot right there. And now it's got.
As he climbed the ranks,
That was a great left hand, and it put Arush right on his back, and Rafael
methodically destroying each rung of the ladder that separated him from his title.
Errol Spence Jr. 7th time he's knocked out his opponent in the first round.
This kicked off a run of 11 straight knockouts.
That feeling you get, though, when you knock them down, when you knock them out, it's addictive, is it not?
6 members of the 2012 U.S. Olympic boxing team were polled, asked who they thought was the hardest worker, most talented, most likely to go furthest as a pro. All 6 said Errol Spence Jr.
Box. Don't think I've ever seen that before.
You've been the most talked about talent in boxing.
It has just been a methodical job here by Errol Spence.
Because we know his offense is great, but he is not that easy to hit. He's not that easy to hurt.
This is the equivalent of a 30-second timeout.
Right.
I don't know what more Robert Byrd needs to see.
And finally, he's seen enough.
Errol Spence Jr.
Samuel Vargas had never been stopped in his career.
We're going to see the Olympian who is undefeated in Errol the Truth Spence Jr.
Until he ran into Errol Spence Jr.
When you hit guys, it sounds like you're hitting a bag. There's a thud.
And there it is. Vargas goes to the canvas. Knocked down for Spence. 7 here in round 2. Spence again. 15 wins, no losses. 12 by way of knockout. And the referee moves in and stops it. That is it. Another win by knockout. 13 knockout victories in 16 wins.
Undefeated with 13 knockouts in 16 pro fights.
Another fighter who had never been stopped before facing Spence.
A man who has come up with 7 of his 16 knockouts in the first round. Only 2 of his bouts have lasted beyond round 5.
And a lot of people are saying, okay, this is the fight where we're going to see if Errol Spence is really the truth.
And now going to the head successfully and then back to the body.
Watching a young guy like Errol Spence right now fight, man, I think he's one of the best up-and-coming prospect in the game.
Spence capped off his 2015 by fighting for the 4th time that year. Barrera rocked Spence with an uppercut in the first round, setting off a back-and-forth war. No, sorry. Spence shook it off immediately. Then he proceeded to beat Barrera senseless.
And it's just Spence stalking. It's like the predator closing in on his prey. Barrera had that deer in the headlights look. And Errol Spence Jr. with an impressive stoppage.
Against Chris Algieri, the Spence hype train was meant to come to a screeching halt.
Do you think that this is the fight that announces Errol Spence not just to the boxing world, but to the world? This is a star.
And Errol Spence facing his first former champ, his biggest fight ever. He told us that.
Algieri was a rugged and seasoned warrior of the ring.
And Spence again.
A true test to the unbeaten truth.
He's not able to find Errol too much in this first round.
Errol Spence has knocked down Algieri here in the fourth. Algieri is wobbly.
Not too much more.
He's not going to be able to take too much more of this.
And Spence trying to finish it here. Spence puts him back down, and that's it. That is it. Errol Spence Jr. remains undefeated with the knockout of Chris Algieri.
Wow, Kenny.
Against Bundu, Spence had a chance to take the #1 welterweight ranking, forcing a mandatory match against champion Kell Brook. The last obstacle to Spence's dream.
And down goes Bundu. That is not a knockdown. Now Errol Spence is looking to close out Leonard Bundu. This is the Errol Spence show, but Bundu is a wounded animal. And he drops Bundu, and this one could be over. Oh my goodness. Bundu is done, and this one is over. As Errol Spence is now the mandatory #1 to his welterweight championship.
Now the #1 challenger, Spence would get a shot at his first world title.
Errol Spence going to England against a proven welterweight champion like Kell Brook.
Well, you know Kell Brook was one of the bigger, stronger welterweights, and he's even had problems even staying at 147.
Defending IBF welterweight champion of the world.
It's the litmus test for Errol Spence Jr., the cool cat with the oozing confidence. He's had some really good punches landed already. Brook trying to drag Spence into a close, personal, hard fight.
Showed a lot of toughness in that fight against Kell Brook.
Kell Brook was undefeated as a welterweight.
That was a genuine challenge. Kell Brook is an excellent fighter.
Right hand from Brook. Looking strong here.
Brook really dominating for me in that round, looking really well.
I think it's very close.
Spence showed in that fight was that he is something special because the first 6 rounds of that fight were very even.
Oh, good shot from Errol Spence Jr. there. Really applying the pressure now. Big left hook from Errol Spence Jr.
Much to the dismay of English fans, Spence put Brook down and captured his first world title.
Kell Brook's hurt here, and he's down in the 10th round, and it's so early.
Yeah, he's hurt. That eye's playing in trouble.
The eye, I think he's going to sit it out. It is all over, and Errol Spence Jr. from the Lone Star State is a new star of world boxing. Congratulations.
Taking it right to a guy who might have been the best welterweight in the world and really cementing himself as a welterweight champion.
Tonight, making the first defense of his title, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning, the defending, and the undefeated IBF welterweight champion of the world, the truth, Errol Spence Jr.
In his first title defense, he made Lamont Peterson quit between rounds.
There's not another welterweight in the world to this point who proves he can stand in that kitchen and take that heat.
And the fight is over. Errol Spence Jr. halts Lamont Peterson.
And you can see
at
that was
the end of the 7th.
tough decision for Barry Hunter. He wanted him to go out there, but too much love and compassion for the young man.
Fighting at the Dallas Cowboys Ford Center, Spence wanted to make a statement in front of his home crowd.
Making the second title defense against undefeated mandatory challenger Carlos Frisco. Ford center Errol Spence.
It's one thing to win the moment. It's another thing to grab it. Grab the packed house. Everybody at his intense moment at the beginning of the fight, and he closes it down.
Garcia was an undefeated 4-division world champion, a true super fight, and massive chapter for both fighters' legacies.
The current lightweight champion of the world, ladies and gentlemen, here is the undefeated and distinguished 4-division champion of the world, introducing Mikey Garcia.
Two top pound-for-pound warriors in front of 50,000 screaming fans.
Oh, left from Spence connecting.
Errol still using the jab to score points.
And clearly this is Spence's fight. He's in control. He's dominant so far.
The outcome was never in doubt. Spence imposed his will and won seemingly every round of the contest.
Two undefeated champions go the distance.
The truth, Errol Spence Jr.
A unanimous decision. Against Sean Porter, Spence set aim at unifying the titles, on a mission to solidify his claim to the throne atop the welterweight division.
Live from Los Angeles, it's time for the main event of the evening. Showtime! Sean Porter!
Spence unbeaten, 25-0, Porter at 32-1. Away we go.
The two fighters engaged in a spellbinding war, seesawing back and forth.
Porter the aggressor early in round 4. Caught him with the left, it's Spence. One minute remaining and
The knockdown would be the difference maker on the scorecards.
Spence said that's what he wanted to do. He will drop Sean Porter.
Errol Spence Jr. and Sean Porter go the distance.
He was now the WBC and IDF Unified Welterweight Champion. Errol Spence was on top of the world.
A violent crash overnight as a Ferrari flipped on a Dallas street. In that car was Errol Spence Jr.
A car crash threatened everything.
And Ken, the video of that crash makes it look unsurvivable.
Spence was miraculously alive.
Spence survived the crash, but is in rough shape at a Dallas hospital right now.
But questions about his boxing future swirled. In In his return against Danny Garcia, Spence silenced the skeptics.
Teddy, before the fight, you said you were most interested to see which Spence would show up after that devastating car crash 14 months ago.
That Errol Spence does not remember that car accident where he was thrown from his Ferrari. He spent 2 weeks in the hospital. He does not remember being in the hospital.
Introducing the truth, Errol Spence Jr.
They call him the Truth. Since arriving on the pro boxing scene, he's lived up to the name, delivering hard doses of truth with every devastating shot landed. The truth that his opponents simply aren't in his class.
Spence is just ripping these shots. He's putting everything behind it. He looks like he's just starting to get more warmed up.
The truth that he is the present and the future.
I'm just saying, Spence really outlands his opponents.
The Truth is on a collision course with history. At 27-0, legacy and glory are there for his taking.
And still, the undefeated unified WBC and IBF welterweight champion of the world, the Truth, Errol Spence Jr.
Nobody brings it home like Joe Vincent. Nobody.
Make it so.